as Moscow builds up its military forces on their shared border. Now the Kremlin is handing the U.S. and NATO a list of demands that it once met in exchange for pulling its troops back. Among them, Russia is calling on the U.S. to deny NATO membership to Ukraine and other former Soviet Eastern Bloc countries, roll back troop deployments across much of Europe, stop military drills near Russia, and ban U.S. warships from areas where they could strike Russia. So what is Vladimir Putin's ultimate goal? Let's bring in Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, member of the House Armed Services Committee and a former Green Beret commander who recently visited Ukraine with a bipartisan group of lawmakers. Congressman, welcome. Before we get to your visit, what do you make of Putin's demands on NATO and on us?
Well, they're nothing new. We have to remember that Putin, his entire career has been as a KGB officer before he has essentially become the new czar of Russia or president for life. And he has designs on recreating the glory of the Soviet Union and is clearly using this as leverage to see what he can get out of the United States, out of our Western allies. And Eric, it shouldn't surprise anyone that this is all happening in the wake of Afghanistan and the perceived betrayal of the United States and its allies there. But it's also happening in the wake of a few other things when it comes to energy diplomacy. Gas prices, as we know, are at an all-time high. That heavily benefits Russia. They are cash flush right now, but also the Nordstrom 2 pipeline, the construction is complete. It's about to be turned on, and that will then allow Russia to choke off Ukraine from its gas supplies and bypass Eastern Europe right into Germany, but also to then hold Germany hostage in terms of any response to Russian aggressiveness. We have a lot of things coming together, but the main thing is he's doing it right now because he knows he can get away with it.
Yeah, I mean,
and he smells weakness in this White House.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of those the tunnels, and it looks like World War I out there. Why did President Biden not shut down Nord Stream? I mean, if he does, what would happen?
Well, I think he thought it was already, pretty much complete. There wasn't much he could do. The Trump administration rightly put sanctions in place, but this is something that the Germans have wanted, even though their Eastern European neighbors have begged them not to, and even though Ukraine has begged them not to, because again, it would put Russia in a checkmate position. But at the end of the day, I think Angela Merkel was catering for her own political reasons to want cheaper gas for Germany.
Congress has asked the Biden administration to provide more weapons, lethal weapons to Ukraine. The Biden administration says it spends about $450 million. But look, they want helicopters, Stingers to shoot down aircraft. They want some of the material that had been in Afghanistan. Should we provide more lethal assistance to Ukraine to help it defend itself?
I want to make a distinction, Eric. There's not anyone in a bipartisan manner that's advocating for massive U.S. troops into Ukraine. That's not what we're talking about. But we could be doing a lot more when it comes to lethal aid to help the Ukrainians defend themselves. And when I was out on the ground in a bipartisan delegation talking to our U.S. military trainers, the Ukrainian special forces and others, there was a lot of frustration at how slow the White House is moving. They not only need more lethal aid faster, they need it now, and they need more sophisticated types, all of which we could provide. But the underlying theme coming from Washington, from their perspective, and I'm seeing it too, is Biden doesn't want to antagonize the Russians. He doesn't want to upset Putin. There's kind of this narrative that if we play nice, he will play nice too. And that's actually having the opposite effect. He's smelling an opportunity. He's smelling weakness. And actually, this inaction and indecision from Washington is inviting aggressiveness. And Eric, that's exactly what happened in 2014 when under Obama and Biden, Putin thought he could take Crimea and eastern Ukraine, and he did, and he got away with it.
We have some photos of your visit that include the Florida National Guard from your state, who actually are training some Ukrainian troops. So finally, what are the troops on the ground? You just mentioned some of it. What do they tell you? We're seeing the photos now. When you sit down with the brass, when you sit with the soldiers out there and the politicians in Ukraine, what are they telling you? Do you think there will be an invasion? And can America potentially stop that?
Well, our troops, both from the Florida National Guard and my fellow Green Berets and others, they're not out on the front line. I want to be clear. They're way off the front line in the rear, but they're providing critical training on the new equipment that we're providing, even things like first aid skills, command and control tactics, and that, the overwhelming sense is that the Ukrainians will fight if we just help them with the right equipment. They will be vastly overwhelmed and outnumbered. So the thinking now is, do we create this kind of partisan resistance? Again, the signal we need to send is that Putin can't just get away with this easily. We need to get inside his calculus so that maybe he thinks twice. And that's why we need to be sending weapons right now. Sanctions need to be going in place now. But instead, what we're hearing from Biden is all the tough things he'll do after Russia invades. Well, you can imagine the Ukrainians are shaking their heads saying that's not going to do us much good, getting tough after his invasion.
The warnings of what could come if there isn't enough action from Florida Republican Congressman Michael Waltz. Congressman, thank you and welcome back home. And we will be right back as we continue to watch the events in Ukraine unfold.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
And Merry Christmas, of course.